Great. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just give it a minute or two for people to start filtering in. We had a few people in the waiting room, but yeah, give people a chance to grab a cup of tea and a sandwich for their lunch. Um, yeah, we'll get things going shortly.
I love it when eating is encouraged in webinars.
Yeah, keep your cameras off if you're going to do that. Okay, good. Right, so I'll kick off with some introductions, and then we'll make a start. So, yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Taylor. I'm the head of capacity building at Community Energy England. And yeah, thank you for joining this session today. We're working with the North East and Yorkshire Net Zero Hub on a project over the next 6 months called Seeing is Believing, all about showcasing all the excellent work happening in the world of community energy in the North East of England. And this particular work stream is about local authority matchmaking, so improving the relationships and the ability for the sector to work alongside local authorities to scale up activity in the region. We'll introduce a few speakers who have some experience in this area. We're going to hear from Abbie from the Net Zero Hub about why they've commissioned this work and the support they provide to both community energy and local authorities. We've got Sarah Burgess joining us from outside the region, a Grand Union Community Energy in Hertfordshire, but a really excellent example of what's possible. We've got Issy Burkitt from the City of York Council to cover their experience of working with community energy organisations to date. Next slide, please. Just very quickly about Community Energy England. We're the national membership body for community energy sector. We have currently over 330 members as part of our network, so ranging from community energy enterprises, charities, voluntary organisations, 340 now. Yeah, including and local authority members as well as supporting kind of private sector companies. And we all collaborate to work together and drive investment into local renewable energy projects that put people at the heart of the clean power transition. Next slide, please. Yeah, we've got plenty of resources on our soon-to-be relaunched website that showcase the level of activity across the country. We have a very popular Google map that represents kind of projects happening all around, including some that have been funded through kind of the regional community energy funds. So yeah, feel free to browse that at some point and see the level of activity in your area. We'd love to fill in the gaps as well. We've got an aim for every local authority area in the country to be served by a community energy organisation in the near future. Next, please. Right, a quick introduction about the Seeing is Believing project. You may have picked up that there's some other activities happening under this banner as well. It's been funded by the North East and Yorkshire Net Zero Hub, and it's delivered as a consortium between ourselves, Community Energy England, the climate solutions charity Ashden, and the Centre for Sustainable Energy. The aim is to share inspiring stories via site visits, networking events, and to showcase how collaborations get started, what's been working well to date, what are the barriers, and then how we can work together over the coming months to overcome some of those challenges to make it easier to make things happen. Um, Certainly the kind of seeing is believing site visits are some of the most exciting bits. So getting out of the office onto the ground to see real life projects in action, hopefully a few wind turbines, some solar panels and energy advice sessions, heat pumps in community centres, all that sort of thing. So that's certainly aimed at councillors, politicians, civil servants that kind of want to understand the impact that this is having on the ground. I'll go a bit more into detail about the matchmaking program a bit later, but I'd like to bring in Abbie now to talk about the hub's work. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So, as John says, I'm Abbie Rodger. I'm from the North East and Yorkshire Net Zero Hub. I'm the project manager there and also the community energy lead. So, next slide, please. So, hopefully most of you all know, but we're one of 5 of the regional net zero hubs across England. We are funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, so DESNZ, and we have programme funding from both DESNZ and Great British Energy now. The aims of the hubs are to attract commercial investments into projects to help develop investment models, increase the number, quality and scale of local net zero projects, develop and support net zero elements, to support a national knowledge transfer programme and to raise local awareness of opportunities for and the benefits of local net zero investment. So you can see sort of our hubs coverage on the map to the side there. The titles on the map are a little bit outdated, so sorry about that. I didn't realise that I'd put sort of an older version on, but the areas we covered are still exactly the same. Next slide, please, Faith. So why is community energy important? Hopefully a lot of people will know a little bit about community energy and know why we are trying to promote it. But in general, community energy can support the move towards renewable and clean energy generation and usage. It reduces reliance on the national grid. It can often bring profits for local people and help to tackle rural fuel poverty. A lot of our programmes now have moved towards urban fuel poverty as well, so we're hoping to tackle both elements there. Helps to build community resilience and empower local communities. Obviously helps to reduce carbon emissions with any sort of green generation projects, can lead towards job creation, and can also help to develop innovative technologies and protect local landscapes, because it does put the control hopefully back to the community rather than big commercial developers. Next slide. So how are we supporting the community energy as a hub? Each of the 5 hubs will do things slightly differently, but we do have some elements that we run across the 5 hubs. So the Great British Energy Community Fund is being delivered by all 5 hubs across the region. We all have a budget towards that, and I'll give a little bit more detail about that in a moment. Up in the North East and Yorkshire, we have a community energy steering group, which some people on the call might already sit on, which is basically a collection of the sort of big organisations in community energy, so Community Energy England, Regen, the DNOs sit on the steering group, and then we have some community energy groups and some local authorities on there as well, so that we meet every 2 months to sort of discuss the community energy sector, see what the landscape's looking like, see where we can work together, make sure we're not duplicating, and just try and get an overall understanding of what each other's doing. And in terms of capacity building, we received some funding from DESNZ again this year to build capacity in the community energy sector and strengthen the bridge between local authorities and community energy. So we've chosen to do some carbon literacy training, video case studies, community energy surgery sessions, community energy workshops, and of course the Seeing is Believing programme. So John's already mentioned quite a bit about the Seeing is Believing programme, but we have decided to deliver this to show the art of the possible for community energy, to get people out there to see what can be done, and to sort of myth bust a little bit away from its sort of huge field scale solar projects or things that are a bit out of reach, to sort of show that smaller projects can thrive in community energy as well. We're hoping it'll help support a more sufficient and resilient sector, and will help to connect community energy groups with their local authorities, so they know who to approach for support, because a lot of community energy projects do need local authority support, whether it's through planning permission or consents, things like that. They're often needed, so if we can bridge those relationships, it's a really good start. We'd like to also highlight the importance of community energy to decision makers, so that again, when it comes to having to make decisions, they're sort of upskilled in knowing what community energy is and how it can benefit them to support in any way they can. We'd like to also encourage other community leaders to be involved in community energy. So these could be people that are already quite well known and well respected in their community, such as faith leaders, sports coaches, teachers, people like that who have a good reputation, have a good trust within the community, to sort of open their eyes to community energy as well. The tour the programme, as John explained, includes a mixture of Seeing is Believing tours, networking events, a matchmaking programme, and some wider community engagement. So as I've said, we're delivering some workshops and surgeries. So last year in 2024, we delivered beginner level workshops for community energy, which focused around low carbon technologies, net zero planning and development, commercial case development, and procurement and financing for community energy. So we recorded all of those sessions, so they are available on our website. I've popped a QR code on there if it's a bit easier if people want to sort of scan it and save it now, but I do believe the slides will come around after as well, just to save loads of links being in there, but those are openly available on our website, so hopefully can be used as a resource for anyone. Following on from that, we chose to do sort of intermediate level workshop of the same 4 themes this year because a lot of people fed back that it was really helpful, but they had a few further questions. And we've also added a beginner level grid connection process workshop as well. I don't think that recording's up just yet, but we have got it, so we will be adding it soon. And then we're also offering one-to-one technical surgeries, which are still available, which Scene Connect have time bookable. It's completely free to either local authorities or community energy groups. So they can book a session. I think it's up to 3 hours they can book to ask really project-specific questions, ask what they might think is the silly questions that they don't want to ask the funders in case they're worried that we might sort of put us off when we're reading an application, and just get a bit of specific, discrete support themselves. And again, there's a QR code there to book, or there's a link on our website to be able to book those as well. And they are available till about December. If they're not all used, we will put them into the new year, but the dates are currently available till December. We're also delivering carbon literacy training. So last year we delivered to 84 community energy and local authority members. We're now hoping to deliver to a further 60 with a couple of different audiences there as well. So we're also focusing on elected members, private sector energy, and also local authority leaders. We've chosen this course to run community energy throughout, so it's more than just standard carbon literacy training. It's still completely fully accredited through the carbon literacy project, so you'd still get your certificate at the end. But all of the case studies and all of the examples are very much community energy focused, so we can hopefully upskill through that as well. There are places available up until February. We've just added 3 more courses. So like I say, it's fully funded. So if you fit into any of those brackets and would like carbon literacy training and sit within the North East and Yorkshire, then please feel free to scan the QR code or go to our website to sign up for those as well. And finally, the Great British Energy Community Fund does follow on from the recent Community Energy Fund, which hopefully people will know about, but it's been £5 million grant scheme for urban and rural communities across England, so £1 million for each hub region to develop community energy projects. The funds are based at community energy organisations for them to develop projects for the benefit of the local community. It's all about development and feasibility, so there isn't any funding available for capital through this programme. And all projects should be at least 50% community owned. There's up to £140,000 available for projects, 40 of which would be stage 1 activity, which is feasibility, and up to £100,000 for stage 2, which is sort of further development, grid connections, planning, applications, business case development, sort of everything else that would come up to make a project investment ready. The closing date for applications to the North East and Yorkshire is the 12th of November, so it's got about a week if people still want to apply. But all the information, guidance and application forms are on our website, so please do have a look if you're interested. And in might be the next slide, there's an email address as well if you have any questions. Yeah, so finally, just to sort of show who the team are for a bit of support, because I think Emma and Sue might actually be on the call, but I can't see who else is here on my screen. So like I said, I'm the community energy lead. We've got Sue, who's our community energy development officer, and Emma, who's our project officer. I try and explain it in the way that Sue supports the sector, whereas Emma supports the hub. So Emma supports me with program delivery, program management, writing of legal documents and things like that, whereas Sue's sort of out on the ground to help groups themselves sort of write applications, signpost them, just support it any way she can, sort of more to the groups, which does mean that Sue is not involved in any appraisal processes for applications. So Sue can help to sort of look through application forms, help write them, because obviously there's no bias then when it comes to appraising. So she's a fantastic resource for us as well. So our email address is on that slide. So if anybody has any questions about sort of anything I've said or would like some further information, please do email. It'll be picked up by one of us 3 and we'll be able to point you to the right person to support. And I think that might be me. I think that might be the last slide. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Abbie. Yeah, are you okay to move on to the next slide, please? I'll introduce now Sarah Burgess, who will talk about their experience from the community energy point of view. I'll just say, yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat today and do use the Q&A feature to add your questions. We'll kind of get round to them later in the talk. Sarah has to leave us at 12:30, so there might be time for quick questions for Sarah immediately after her piece as well. So here we go.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, John, and thanks for squeezing me in. Yeah, so I'm Sarah Burgess, and I sit as a volunteer board director, but also as a freelance contractor for Grand Union Community Energy. We call ourselves JUICE for short, just because it's so much easier to say. We are, like so many other community energy organisations, set up as a community benefit society. We actually started back in 2012 when they did their very first share offer. I think they raised just shy of £70,000 to put a 40 kilowatt system on a local Rudolf Steiner school in one of the villages of the areas that we cover. But we are fully run by a volunteer board. We co-opted one more person last night at our board meeting, so we've now got 7 board directors. And as John mentioned, I'm not in Yorkshire, I am in South West Herts, so we cover 3 different local authority district councils. They're called Dacorum, Three Rivers and Watford. So we're kind of essentially to the left of where the M1 meets the M25, if you like. We have 40 members, just over 40 members, which are essentially everybody that invested in our first share offer back in 2012. As I mentioned, I'm a paid contractor. We fund the projects that we deliver through paying people, and that typically comes from project managers, it comes from community engagement people, facilitators, through the projects that we win on a project by project basis. The one thing I really love about community energy, and I got involved about 3.5 years ago, is just that everything community energy organisations, and if any of you are part of one, I'm preaching to the converted, you'll know this better than I do. It's all about what's going to benefit the community. And when I talk to people about what community energy can bring, it is literally that, the decisions that we make, the strategy and what we want to follow from a business model point of view for JUICE is, will it benefit the community? If the answer is no, we're not going to do it. So it is very much, how is our community going to benefit from this? Or what's happening in our area and how can we ensure that the community benefits from this? Some of you who've been around community energy for a while may have heard of power up and power down. For those of you that's a new expression, essentially power up is promoting renewables, so getting more power in your area, more renewable and clean power in your area. Power down is helping people, typically residents, to cut their usage, to reduce their usage of energy, be that heating or electricity. And we as an organisation, our strategy was, we like to be a bit greedy, we decided to focus on both. Yes, we started with the power up, with the solar panels on the Rudolf Steiner school, but we have developed our offering over the last 1.5 years to look more at how can we have energy champions, how can we do resident by resident basis to deliver and support people in that way. So we kind of focus on both bits of it. Next slide, please. So yeah, as John said, he very much kind of asked me to talk about partnerships, about working with local authorities, because we've had a bit of a journey. I mentioned we have 3 local authorities that we work over. There's only 2 of them named there. The other one is literally the meeting I'm going to at 12:30, so we're working on that one. But partnerships are absolutely crucial, and how you build that relationship. So for example, when we work with Three Rivers District Council, I'll go into it in a bit more detail in a second, but it started with one project, Fast Followers Innovate UK funding. It has led to opening up doors with their healthy hubs, with their warmer homes support, and it keeps growing and keeps growing and keeps growing. Watford has now kind of in some ways looked over the border and gone, what are they doing? We want to do a bit of that. How come they're hitting their net zero targets, or they're expanding their bandwidth by using this community energy group? So they've now opened up the healthy hubs. I was on a call this morning. I have another clarification call later on this afternoon about how we can work closer with Watford to feed their pipeline for their Warmer Homes grant and reach residents that they're not able to. So those partnerships with local authorities from a community energy point of view is where I look at it, are crucial. But I've also had the feedback from the local authorities that it really benefits them and kind of helps them get what they need and then hit their targets for what they're looking to deliver. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think this was the main bit I was going to talk about and just kind of talk through what that journey looks like, because as with all of these things, it doesn't happen overnight. And some of it, if I'm honest, was a little bit fortuitous. So I got told that I should go and meet when I joined JUICE in kind of October 2022. Got bumped from one person to the next. I love going and having coffees with people, just kind of understanding the lay of the land. And somebody introduced me to a Green councillor called Chris Mitchell. And I met with Chris and we were due to meet for an hour, ended up chatting for about 2. He gave me the whole tour of the parish clerk offices and the whole area. And I was like, okay, great. I've kind of updated him on that we exist. Let's see. I don't know what else will kind of come out of it. And then I didn't hear anything. And then February, my phone rang. And it was a lady called Jo Hewitson, who was the Sustainability and Climate Change Officer for Three Rivers District Council. And if any of you are officers, you'll totally know this one. It's like, she was like, I've got 5 days to get a grant application in. I've heard you do community energy and I think it would be great to add. Can you help? And it was one of those of like, okay, yes, how do we do this? And as with everything, it was needed to be done yesterday. But we worked together, we found a way of doing it, we put in the bid with them, and we were one of their key partners, along with National Energy Foundation. And then in April, we heard that they'd been successful. So they were able to receive, I think it was just shy of £300,000 for a 2-year project to hire a sustainability officer and upskill and get lots of trainings for the council, but then also to bring in expert partners to help deliver on work streams that were going to reduce the non-technical barriers, was the official term, to hit their net zero targets. That then meant that we had 2 years working with Three Rivers District Council, bi-weekly calls, quarterly monitoring officing calls, where we could build that relationship. We were funded to be able to have resource to have those meetings, to look at the options. We had 2 different work streams that we were working on with them. One was in general promoting community energy. How can we support more schools, more buildings, more community buildings to get renewables, solar panels on those roofs? How can we get a model that works? How can we reduce the barriers with the local county council that own the state schools and manage them to make sure that that happens? And that, anyone that's been in conversations like that, you know that you're kind of like, you're in the trenches together, you're building that relationship, you're very much being seen as partners rather than suppliers versus clients. Then we also had a project called Transition Streets, which was on a residence basis where neighbours and groups of friends come together. They work through a programme of workshops, and our role was to facilitate those, do thermal images of their homes and help them kind of save money on their household bills. And they were lovely to see, and the engagement, the case studies that we've got out of it. Three Rivers have got some amazing KPIs and deliverables, which says people that have gone through this have now gone on to do bulk buying of cavity wall insulation. They've gone on to save X amount of money and cut X number of tons out of their carbon footprint. So it was a really lovely way for them to be able to demonstrate that they were reaching those people that were deemed able to pay, but didn't have access to any grants, but they were still encouraging them to cut their carbon footprint and decarbonise. So that project was really great for building that relationship, showing what we could do, and kind of being a really trusted advisor on that one. So while that was ongoing, we also had other projects that came to mind. So some councillors were like, oh, well, what about if we did solar canopies? So we put together a bid for CEF funding for the Community Energy Fund, stage 1, looking at whether that could be done through community energy. Obviously working closely with Three Rivers District Council because they owned the car parks. Again, there's just kind of exploring all of these different ideas. So Three Rivers didn't have to do the bandwidth, but they were able to kind of like leverage and make sure that they've got all of the information and be at the front of these things. The one that I think I'm probably most proud of is the data centre. So we've got an 88,000 square metre behemoth kind of data centre being built on Greenbelt. Back in October, when the last round of the net zero funding, the hub CEF funding, sorry, was open, we heard that this was in the works. It hadn't been approved yet, but we put in a very speculative bid because we'd been given a nudge that it was likely to happen. These things were moving to infrastructure. So we put in a bid saying, look, if this is approved, can we look at how the local residents can benefit through a heat network? We were successful. Obviously, with everything, it kind of got delayed a bit, by which point the data centre had been approved. And now we're really working really hard to make sure that there are benefits. The data centre are on board. We're basically kind of drawing up a list of community section 106 wish list that they can kind of have delivered to them. So it's a really exciting one. And if we hadn't have had that work and that close relationship with the local authority, that wouldn't have happened, because that funding at stage 1, certainly in our area, isn't currently available. They're only taking stage 2 applications. They've also, Three Rivers applied for the Investment Readiness Scheme, which is what IRS means, earlier this year. They were successful through the Net Zero Hub. But when they got their congratulations, you won the bid, the condition for them receiving the funds was to engage with the community energy organisation to deliver the community engagement sessions. So they know us, they trust us, they like working with us, and it's very much our bag. It's what we do. We're hyper local, and we can go out. We've done pop-ups in the leisure centres. We're doing presentations in the libraries to kind of explain the journey and be that neutral voice. So it just kind of expands their bandwidth, but also means that we have that skill set where maybe they don't. And I hear that time and time again from talking to community local authorities, that they want to do community engagement, but it's not something they have the resources to do or necessarily the skill set to do. So it's where community energy can really fill a gap. The result of all of this, all of these things I've talked about, they're all grants, they're all coming from another pot. But because we've built that relationship, we've reached what I would say is kind of has been a bit of a game changer for us, where they're putting their money where their mouth is now and kind of saying, yeah, we're going to find a line item, we're going to put you in our budget. And we've now just signed off 2 contracts directly with them, and they've put us in our budget to continue the support, to continue the Transition Streets programme, to continue promoting community energy across the area. So it's been a long 2.5 years, actually kind of 3 years now, aren't we? But it's been a real journey, and it's been really lovely to see how that connection kind of comes in with a local authority and how it can work so well. And so we're seeing that now with Watford. We're definitely working on it with Decorum. We're hoping we'll get some sign off for some funding directly from them shortly. And a lot of that comes from how we've been able to develop it with Three Rivers. I'm very conscious I've whistled through that very, very quickly. My final slide is literally just kind of any questions. So if anybody does have anything, I'm happy to answer. Or if anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn or ping me an email, if we don't have time for it today, please do feel free.
Yeah, that's excellent, Sarah. Thank you very much. We haven't had any immediate questions in the Q&A bits. Unfortunately, as we've started the event, we can't enable the chat feature either, but please use the Q&A bit for conversation and introducing yourselves as well. People can try putting their hand up, perhaps, if there's any immediate questions under the React button. We might be able to spotlight you. Otherwise, I found that really valuable. And on the one hand, community energy can be a really formal thing set in strategy and policy, but you really kind of highlighted the human side of it is really so important as well. And certainly when it comes to matchmaking, helping people understand the structure of local authorities and how to make those initial first steps and introductions.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's also about opening up the different departments, because we kind of went in with Three Rivers with the climate change team. So we knew them really, really well. But through the other projects, we've been opened up to the planning departments, to the housing departments, to all the other different departments, and helping them understand that community energy is also an offering that they can benefit from. Watford and Decorum do their warmer homes through the housing departments, whereas Three Rivers is sustainability. So it's kind of we're working with different departments and not just automatically going for ones that have the decarbonisation targets, because everybody has their targets, and it's working out how they can leverage it really.
Got a quick question here, a couple of ones. I'll read them both out. One from Jenny: how did you avoid having to go through LA open procurement procedures? And then one from Lee about using Section 106 agreements for community energy. Did that require a policy change?
So great questions. In terms of procurement, the amount's too small to have to go through that procurement, because all of it's come up to literally the last month. Everything else was from different funds. So it was from the CEF fund, it was from Innovate UK, so it was from kind of central grant pots. This bit has come through. It was over slightly the kind of what they could just sign off without having to do anything. They did have to fill in a separate procurement form for this funding. But because we are the only community energy organisation in their area, it was a really simple, nobody else can do this. Nobody else kind of has the community energy industry understanding and that brand and trust and respect with the community. So they didn't have too many difficulties getting that bit signed off. In terms of Section 106, to be totally honest with you, we're at the very early stages of that. It was literally something that we were kind of discussing this week, and will be part of our data centre community presentation once that's finished, to basically say, how can we take this project? We know that the developer's going to have to pay Section 106 money, and be that community engagement voice to get their ideas and then feed that back into the local authority so that they can work out the planning challenges. I don't say that I know what they are when it comes to Section 106. So because I hear time and time again when developments come up, Section 106 is either thought after the fact, and it's kind of like, oh, we need some things, what shall we put on? There's potentially, it could be that there's a community energy fund on that list of literally put X amount of money in, and that can go to capital investments over the next 5-10 years that go into renewables in the area. So yeah, that's probably not answered your question very helpfully, but yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, some of those examples we'll try and capture and share as part of this going forward. I guess you'll have to make a dash now. It's half
I'm going to
12.
have to make a move, but
Thank you
thank you
so
very,
much.
very much.
And over to yeah, great. Bring in now Issy from the local authority perspective. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, John. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to be talking about the other side of what we've just heard about. So I'm aware we're a little bit running behind, so I'll try and not talk for too long. But yeah, thank you for having me. So I work in the climate change team for City of York Council as a carbon reduction project officer. And I'll just kind of talk through how we work with our kind of most local community energy company organisation, York Community Energy. So if you can just move on slide. Thank you. So just to put this into a bit of context, York in 2019 kind of declared a climate emergency with everybody else and looked into our emissions, where they were coming from and things. And as you can see from this chart, over 60% of our emissions come from buildings and another almost 30% from transport. From this, if we can just move on one, we created a climate change strategy of how we aim to get to net zero carbon. We have got an ambition to get there by 2030, so it's quite an ambitious target, I guess, to try and move quite quickly. And I think I've pulled out a couple of bits from the strategy on this slide just to show that we've thought about energy and the transition, and within that community energy at every point. So just in our engagement section, I think all of these kind of can relate to working with community energy organisations, but especially increasing awareness and understanding. York Community Energy work really well across all kind of sectors of people and businesses to kind of really get the message out there in an understandable way. And also from the point of the council working with York Community Energy, building those strong relationships and networks. And I think that's something we've done particularly well with York Community Energy, kind of from both sides, assisting each other, I guess, in our work. And then also just to point out that in the energy section of the strategy, we've said we want to increase our own renewable energy generation, and within that support the increase in local community energy ownership. So that's kind of really embedded into our own kind of policies and strategies as a council to make sure that community energy is thought about in the transition to net zero. Next slide, please. We created a local area energy plan. I think this was completed in 2022. And again, within this, we thought about community energy. I think York Community Energy were kind of one of our technical assistance partners. So they kind of had some view on this as we were creating the document, so that they were kind of part of the process as well. Within the local area energy plan, it shows us how we move over to kind of a fully, I guess, electrified system. And also within that, how within York, we can kind of become, if we manage to kind of roll out enough renewable energy, kind of sustaining our electrical capacity from within York itself. So really looking at where those renewable sources will come from, whether that's domestic, non-domestic, and kind of your larger ground-mounted systems as well. And within that, we've kind of started doing some planning and looking at where the council can do some of our own installs of renewables. And I think within each of the feasibilities we've done, within a finance section, we've always considered community energy as one of the kind of financing options. We haven't kind of got far enough down the line with any of them beyond feasibility yet. So we kind of haven't put any of those into practice, but it's definitely a consideration each time we're thinking of doing kind of those larger scale energy projects. Next slide, please. So I've listed a couple of the projects that we're specifically working on with York Community Energy. So we also got some Innovate UK funded funding. So that's on a really big retrofit project that we're working on to create a retrofit one-stop shop. So York Community Energy have helped there in terms of advice and assessments and things. So they're a really good partner to have on that project. We work closely with York Community Energy as part of the Solar for Schools project as well, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. And we're also starting some conversations about kind of creating some community energy projects within York. And within that, we've as part of that, we're looking at the council-owned buildings or ones that we kind of have some kind of ownership of, including kind of leisure centres and libraries and things like that, whether they can be spaces that large-scale solar arrays can be put on as part of a community energy system. So we're in very early talks about that, but I think York Community Energy have been really kind of proactive on that, seeking different funding, doing the feasibility studies, kind of coming to the council with the information, making sure that we've got that information. So when we start having talks, so we started talking to legal and procurement, and I know our councillor for our exec member for environment is really involved in those conversations as well. So it's kind of making sure that we're talking to the right people and have the right information straight away, so that the council don't have to go out and do that work, I guess. So they're really helpful and proactive in that. And I guess I should have added a point on here as well on something like technical advice or technical assistance. We run events as the council, so we do quite regular events called the Green Business Forum, and York Community Energy has spoken at those events or given advice to businesses at those events. And a few years ago, we also held something called a hackathon, and looking at how we kind of take the information from our local area energy plan and move it into real life scenarios. And again, York Community Energy were one of those, one of the people around the table at that, kind of giving advice and support, I guess, in the projects that the council are looking to kind of move forward with. And then next slide, which I think is the final one. So just a bit more information about how we work with York Community Energy on Solar for Schools. So the climate change team, we work across the whole of climate change. So I guess we, as individuals, don't have all of the knowledge, kind of that technical knowledge in some instances about the really in-depth parts of projects. So York Community Energy help with that. They can speak to the schools that we're kind of engaging with for the solar panels, and make sure that everyone is really comfortable with the process. They're also great at doing additional promotion and marketing for us. So at the minute we've got, I think it's up to now 11 schools in York with solar arrays from Solar for Schools, and there's kind of more coming, but quite a few of those have been from conversations that York Community Energy have had with the schools, not just coming directly from the council. So I think it's kind of it's a two-way thing. We're promoting it as the council, but York Community Energy are also having those one-to-one conversations as well, and really kind of getting schools on board with it. And as I say, kind of providing that expert advice to schools, but also back into our team, into the council, to make sure that we understand the full process and everything that's happening in that process as well, because kind of York Community Energy and Solar for Schools work very closely together, so they know a little bit more about the process as a whole. And I think that's everything. I feel like I've spoken very quickly and kind of grazed over a few things. And I also just want to kind of mention that last year the council won a highly commended award for supportive local authority at the Community Energy Awards, specifically for working with York Community Energy. And I do want to say it's very much kind of a two-way partnership. It's definitely not kind of one way or the other. We really do appreciate the support of York Community Energy with everything they do of helping us move towards that net zero target. I think that's it from me. I'll stop talking.
Perfect. Sounds excellent. Thank you very much. I think you really highlighted a few points there. Like, one is the local area energy plan. At some point, you have to engage pretty much every household and business within York to kind of make that reality, don't you? And I think the community energy partners can help be that kind of trusted intermediary and boost your capacity and be their ones out there going to coffee mornings or going into shops and talking to people on the ground. So that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And making that information in the local area energy plan more understandable for kind of the general public as well. I think they do that very well.
Yeah. And then also things like Solar for Schools, like if you're interested in this for your area, but there isn't an established organisation there yet, there are these intermediaries like Solar for Schools. I know we've got Mike and Paul and others from Energy for All on the call today who've done some excellent partnership work in North Lincolnshire as well. So there are other kind of bodies within the community energy world that can help you take these stepping stones to build up local capacity as well. We've got a few questions coming in. I'll cover my content and we'll wrap up with some questions at the end, if that's okay. So in terms of the work we're hoping to build on between now and March next year, hope to get some feedback from you on kind of what we have in mind. But just there is some research out there that this is building upon. So this was building on a piece of work undertaken by Community Energy South with the hub previously evaluating the levels of community energy support and activity within the North East and Yorkshire region. So we're drawing a lot of the findings from that about the priorities for local authorities working with the sector from there. Some of the other hubs as well have also been commissioning some really good guidance and toolkits on local authority and community energy collaboration. So there's, an example of one there that was published by the Greater South East Net Zero Hub, but I'm sure there's equal learning for kind of all parts of the country coming through those resources as well. So we'll flag those where they're available. Next slide, please. So I think we've heard from some of the speakers today that local authorities and community energy enterprises have increasingly shared priorities and values when it comes to local net zero delivery. We're both place-based organisations. They've got long-term views to improving the places we live, and they've got that democratic accountability in terms of using kind of cooperative and social enterprise business structures to make sure that we're doing this for maximizing social impact rather than just kind of purely profit-driven approaches. And people do get involved with community energy because they're concerned about things like climate change and energy prices and people's health, and they want to make the place as they live better. Lots of common ground there. In terms of making it achievable, we collect something through our national role at Community Energy, and we commission state of the sector research, and we keep track of all the kind of finance being raised by projects across the country. And just in the past 12 months, They've raised at least £24 million of investment through community shares, community bonds, levering in other innovation funding into kind of real kind of solar, wind, heat pump projects, insulation schemes around the country. So when it comes to bringing in kind of money to make this happen, certainly look to kind of retail investors, whether it's through shares, local climate bonds. This is a genuine source of high impact stuff alongside things like the National Wealth Fund, and blending kind of these different pots of money together. And hopefully we're going to see some increased resources from GB Energy to boost the collaboration between local authorities and community energy organisations as well. It's been a little delayed, but the local power plan is due to be published hopefully early 2026 now. And that should come with increased funding and resources. So things like the community energy funds that we heard about earlier. Previously, they're 5 million per year. We'd love to see a few more zeros added to the bottom of that, because we know that's certainly what's required to kind of deliver at the pace needed for some of our kind of net zero targets. But yeah, and some of the activity that's already happened with GB Energy this year, where they've been directly grant funding solar on schools and hospitals, or giving money to combined authorities through the Mayoral's Renewable Fund. I think in future years, they'll be looking at ways to maximise the value from that. So using that money through similar channels, but to lever in extra investment through community energy routes as well. So we'd love to explore kind of opportunities to collaborate around things like that, where it makes sense to direct the grant money to bits of the energy system that genuinely need it, like heat pump upgrades, and then draw in finance from the community or other sources where things like LEDs or solar can pay for themselves through investment. So yeah, we can cover that. Like I've worked prior to this role, I spent 10 years working as a local authority kind of community climate action advisor. So I've kind of had some experience in both worlds. But through those research and just our experience, these seem to be some of the common challenges our members face. So procurement has certainly come up already. So understanding the different thresholds within each authority in terms of the level of detailed procurement that needs to happen. Sometimes community energy organisations can struggle to navigate kind of procurement and tender processes, particularly when it's kind of more ambitious projects that require frameworks or DPS type solutions. So we're looking at how we can educate our members to understand and get on the right frameworks, but also how they can be factored in terms of the way procurement manages to value the additional social impact that community energy partners can bring, or at least kind of bring them into coalitions alongside more established engineering firms. Certainly, there's some work going on, like looking to replicate the approach that Bristol have done with their City Leap, and the way community energy has been kind of factored into that. And as devolution happens and more combined authorities take on those sorts of challenges and responsibilities, that would be really good to kind of get that designed in and replicated if possible. Other issues that often come up is obtaining the correct legal permissions, particularly trying to install solar and other kit on public sector buildings. So going beyond sustainability teams to help legal teams not over duplicate all the due diligence that has to happen. So could there be some shared resources that come out of this that every council can be comfortable moving at pace with? So whether that's bringing in other partners like the LGA or the hubs or GB Energy to kind of build confidence there, that would be interesting to discuss. Similarly, can the councils be long-term power off-takers from community energy projects? Again, we've seen some examples of this trying to happen. Certainly, if it's directly on a building, it's quite easy to do, but are there other corporate power purchase setups that can happen to kind of hedge costs for both parties? Internal capacity to manage projects from the council's point of view, making sure they've got appropriate staff and leadership in place to make it happen. That's certainly something that comes up, and how can we get kind of that prioritised when it isn't a statutory resource with all the kind of other political and funding pressures that councils have to deal with. And then, yeah, this opportunity to blend finance. So with the kind of closure of things like the public sector decarbonisation scheme, that was grant funding heat pump upgrades, for example, are there other ways we can look at financing both generation and heat projects together that work? Or, yeah, certainly we've been doing some research into kind of wind turbines, for example, correlate really well with heat pump use. And if you can kind of directly wire them together somehow, that seems to be the best way to bring down costs. Certainly when you're looking at heat networks and energy centres, there's some really good examples from Denmark and places like that, where you've got these kind of municipal and cooperatively owned energy hubs that build in district heating and solar power and wind power. Yeah, all the way down to kind of individual building solutions too. And then, yeah, looking at democratic financing, so things like, can the council use their kind of credit rating to do local climate bonds as an alternative to Public Works Loan Board funding, and use that funding to kind of buy into shared ownership projects alongside, or joint ventures alongside community energy enterprises to make some more ambitious things happen, or help finance add support for kind of low interest finance for households to complement energy advice services. Where I am in Suffolk, the council have a partnership with Lendology where they have a 0% home loan scheme for people that want to kind of finance energy upgrades at home, that kind of in that kind of squeezed middle bit where they don't qualify for grants, but then they don't have the savings. So there's some good examples of that working too. Next slide, please. So yeah, we'll try and, in terms of what happens now, quite keen to get your feedback on what you would find most useful. Is it these sorts of formats of lunchtime webinars? Can we look at doing some in-person events, or kind of some, yeah, kind of more kind of one-to-one working groups? On the one hand, we want to work with community energy organisations and help them build partnerships and navigate kind of those, like the journey that Sarah went on with their local authorities. We've probably got the resource to do probably one per kind of North East Yorkshire sub-region for that. But also kind of the peer networking between local authorities. So those who are further along the journey can kind of share their experiences with others that are starting out. And then, are there other useful workshops we can put on aimed at Section 151 officers or the legal teams to kind of cover those procurement and finance issues in more detail? In terms of the Seeing is Believing programme coming up, we've got a few tours lined up before Christmas. There's going to be one in York at the end of this month, and another in Newcastle coming up very soon as well. The actual tour sites are pretty limited, and Ashden are coordinating the bookings for those and prioritising councillors and council staff. But the Newcastle event will also be an in-person networking day as well, so we'll share details of that. And there'll be 3 more at least in kind of January, February, March time, which we'll advertise too. Next slide, please. We'll take some questions now while we have some time. There's other kind of adverts for what we're doing beyond Seeing is Believing to rattle through, and we also have a poll that we'd like to share. Is it possible to get the poll up whilst people are still here before 1 o'clock? Okay. So yeah, if you can take the chance to kind of just quickly enter this, particularly question 3, in terms of what your priorities are. You can go back to where I was on the slides. I'll still try and rattle through them once I've done this bit. But yeah, please have a go at entering the poll. Let's take a quick look at the questions. So yeah, there's some comments from Annabelle about, yeah, going into the detail of these step-by-step interactions. Definitely can do that. see the comment from Barry about the work you're doing with the Sheffield Energy Hub. That sounds perfect. Definitely would like to cover that in more detail in future events and hopefully see you soon. I should mention the team at Community Energy England, we do have a strong presence in the region. Our head office is in Sheffield. Quite a few of our staff are based there, and we've got our national conference and awards night on the 17th of November, which I think we may be fully booked, but hopefully some of you will be able to make it there. There's a specific question about treasury issues and permissions with schools. That's an ongoing thing. We will try and keep people updated on that, but we think there's going to be a workaround. There's this kind of like schools ultimately will have to pay their electricity bill to someone. So whether it's a rooftop PPA lease or whoever, we hope to get that resolved. But yeah, that is an issue kind of in the short term, but we can send some information through about that. Our policy and advocacy team are working closely with the departments to rectify those. Is there a case study of all the combined renewable energy delivery completed with LAs and community energy? So that is a resource we're hoping to build on as part of this project. So watch this space on that front. We're also launching or relaunching our new kind of Community Energy England website this week, which will have how-to guides and case studies and local authority specific resources as part of that. So we'll make sure to share that as it goes live. But there's a discussion about P441. This is kind of the golden kind of goose egg type thing of community energy. Is most common question is, can I buy my power from that solar panel on array on the school over there? There are some energy local kind of clubs that are trying to make this happen already. But yeah, this is an official change to the electricity market rules that would make this a more formal thing. And we're going to be covering this kind of, can it open up the viability of more local generation? Certainly, we've got a discussion about this coming up through our energy learning network next month. But yeah, that's definitely will be a big thing if that comes through. And then anyone working on a time with North East Combined Authorities Carbon and Nature Marketplace for the North East? No, that's a very good. We can look into that. Certainly, there's been a whole discussion about carbon offsets and the value of that through this. There are technologies that kind of combine carbon removals and heat and power, like biochar, CHP systems. So yeah, that could be an area to look at. Certainly with the kind of wooded kind of landscape of kind of Northumberland. That's one of the kind of good feedstocks there, but also can we enhance biodiversity and natural capital on kind of community solar farm sites? That's definitely something we'd like to discuss. Right. Great. I think we'll just use the last few minutes to wrap up. Yeah, thank you very much to all our speakers today. This will be recorded and we'll share this via YouTube. So if your colleagues couldn't make it today, we'll be able to do that as well. So we're involved with a few other projects around the region. We've got these services going on at the moment. So Community Energy Go is a pre-application advice service, so people can get hand-to-hand support before they put in funding applications. There's a similar thing called Local Power Potential that we're hoping to launch with now Northern Power Grid to feed into their funding pots as well. So building on the expertise within the community energy sector to boost the quality of projects getting funding. Next slide, please. Yeah, upcoming events beyond Seeing is Believing. Yeah, we'll be active in Sheffield on the 17th of November. Lots of fun stuff happening there. We've got various webinars planned as well, looking at kind of the power purchase context and marketplace with Unity on the 2nd of December. And then looking at the potential for commercial rooftops as well. So supermarkets and warehouses with FX and got Co-op Supermarket Group joining that discussion and UK Warehousing Association. So from an economic development point of view, so yeah, can councils make those connections with the business improvement districts and other people to make those introductions to get more solar happening on commercial roof space too. Next, please. And then just a final plug, we're a membership network, and yeah, local authorities can be members as well. So do check out the options available for that. That gives you access to our newsletters, and we have an online discussion forum, and then kind of various kind of good things happening throughout the year. But we'll certainly be building on this matchmaking program in the coming months. And yeah, thank you for your attention and feedback today. And I think last slide. Any questions? And it's 1 o'clock. Yeah, so just contact details there. There's my email address. Our website is www.communityenergyengland.org, and you can find us there as well. Otherwise, through Abbie at the hub as well. Great. Thank you.